Hey, say hey if you're gay. Come on, let's have a clap for gay.
Hello, my darlings, and welcome to a reading vlog. This reading vlog is dedicated to the Lambda Awards. Is this actually Lambda or is it the Greek Lambda? Is it Lambda? If anyone knows, I just realized this might be just anglicized spelling of the Greek letter L, Lambda. Someone let me know. So the Lambda Awards recognize LGBTQIA literature. There are so many characters, every flavor of LGBTQIA is catered for here. You've got fiction, non-fiction, poetry, YA, the whole thing, children's as well. So I'm putting a list of all of the categories. There is obviously no way that I could even begin to try every single book that they are nominating. And so I have decided, because I am bi, that I am going to read the bi categories. Obviously, only whatever my library has currently in their collection. But if you are into queer literature, I recommend having a look at the nominees. There's a lot to choose from. I will just quickly run through the list of what is nominated in the bisexual sections. So for the bisexual fiction, we'll have And I'll Take Out Your Eyes by A.M. Sosa, Raise Crows and They Will Take Out Your Eyes. A boy wakes up with a knife in his hand. It's the early 90s in Stockton, California, when Christian is caught sleepwalking in the kitchen by his family. The beginning of a curse unleashed by an aunt. To save Christian and the family from the curse, the family seeks out a curandero who promises salvation, but at a price Christian wishes he didn't have to pay. I did already try this book and I did DNF it. The writing style just wasn't for me, unfortunately, so I will not be reading that in this reading vlog because I've already DNF'd it. Then there was Beyond All Reasonable Doubt, Jesus is Alive by Melissa Lozada-Oliva. I will be reading this, so I will tell you more about that once we get to it. We have House of Beth by Kerry Cullen. I have just read this and I will give you my review once I return, as I'm going out today and I'm strapped for time. We also have Sympathy for Wild Girls by Demery McGee, which I will also be reading in this vlog, and The Salvage by Anbara Salam, which I will also be reading in this vlog. There is a whole bisexual poetry section I would love to read, but my libraries, none of them really stock up on poetry and they don't have any of these. I have requested that they get Antibody by Rebecca Salazar because that is the one I'm most interested in from this collection. Whether they get it in time remains to be seen, but I might not be able to taste test any of the bisexual poetry at the moment, unfortunately. And then we have bisexual non-fiction. So there's Lukma, No Hands by Gabrielle Drolet. This is a memoir about living with chronic pain. I would have liked to have read that, but my library doesn't have it. Reading the Waves by Lidia Yuknavitch. I will be reading for this vlog. The Maps They Gave Us, One Marriage Reimagined by Wayne Scott. So welcome to Will and Grace with Kids, Cats and a Mortgage, a memoir that celebrates the creative possibilities of intimate relationships. I'll just leave that there. The Mobius Book by Catherine Lacey. So this is a memoir and a fiction. You turn the book around, it's in two halves, and it's about Catherine Lacey's marriage. Mostly, I have already DNF'd this book. It just wasn't for me. I wasn't really interested in reading it, so I will not be reading that again. And then there is Unmothered, Untongued Lyric Essays by Lee Horikoshi Oraripao, which also, unfortunately, my library doesn't have, so I won't be reading that either. But I will give you my review of the House of Beth when I return. Okay, I am back from my perfume outing. So as I was saying, I read House of Beth by Kerry Cullen. I ended up giving this a 3 stars. This is a psychological drama, and it is about a woman fleeing her past who marries into a grief-soaked home only to find herself unraveling under the weight of obsession haunting and a voice in her head. Cassie, short for Cassiopeia, needed a fresh start, so she returns to her hometown, runs into her former best friend, marries her former best friend, and immediately becomes haunted by his dead wife. The pacing feels like a lit fic. It is really slow, and then all of a sudden the ending is incredibly fast-paced, and all of these plot twists are being thrown at you like dodgeball. It's a lot about the betrayal of intrusive thoughts, and the tension of living in someone else's life, as well as the feeling of being watched or judged by the past. So the main themes in this were intrusive thoughts and harm OCD. So this is very heavy on harm OCD, grief as haunting, the myth of the perfect woman or wife, identity erosion in domestic spaces, queerness and displacement, and a house as a memory container. I thought this was really strange and slow and odd. The characters are all weirdos, and I will say that I didn't really love any of them. Bisexuality rep was also weird. I didn't love it. It's not a horror or thriller. I think that is what it is listed as. Like I said, it's more of a psychological suspense and drama than a horror or a thriller, because I don't count her intrusive thoughts imagery as horror. I am someone that does have OCD. It is a lot more minimized thanks to very high doses of psilocybin for me that it worked on my OCD, which I'm thankful for. But one of the things that I had was in violent intrusive thoughts. So I was always picturing the harm of myself or others. So I understood that aspect, but I would say that might be a turn off for some people, reading her violent thoughts of harm. So that didn't count like as horror for me because it wasn't real. It's just her imagining things, and for some reason that just doesn't have any threat of danger to me. At the end, it got thrillery with all of the plot twists that are just thrown at you, and you're like, what the fuck is going on? So it was just, I don't know how I feel about this book. That's why I gave it 3 stars. I don't know. I didn't connect to anybody. And it was just all really weird, man. I don't know what else to say. It was a strange experience, a strange book. It felt like a novel of 3 parts that didn't all mesh together. So not a great start, especially too because it's listed as a bisexual nominee. I'm looking at it through the lens too of like, what kind of bisexual rep is it giving? And this one was just, I don't know, not great, I guess. Vibe check: dilapidated tree houses, eerie pipes, feeling alone in a noisy house. I think that the people who would like this are ones who want to read about OCD rep and people who enjoy kind of like haunted house vibes but make it weird. So the dead wife is a character in this book and does get their own POV that is happening in this. So similar books or films to this, for me, it has a similar vibe with the dead wife and replacing them, stepping into their shoes kind of, as Rebecca and Verity. So I was very lucky in I've gotten all the books that I want to read out of this category. So I might be going on to The Salvage or Beyond All Reasonable Doubt, Jesus is Alive next, because I've got those in ebook. I've got to go and pick up the last one, which is Sympathy for Wild Girls. And then, I've only got Reading the Waves out of the non-fiction category to read. And hopefully if Antibody can come in. But unfortunately, just library-wise, didn't get access to all of them. And because I'm doing so many prize reading vlogs, I don't have the time to try and source everything before the winners are announced. But I'll see you with my next book review. Hi. Okay, I am back to finish off this vlog. So I did read Beyond All Reasonable Doubt, Jesus is Alive, Stories by Melissa Lozada-Oliva. I ended up giving this a 2.5 average. It is a collection of surreal, horror-laced stories that are about women searching for meaning, faith, and identity, often in deeply unsettling ways. Some of the stories, for instance, you've got a lonely girl who gets too invested in her dad's creepy video game. A hospital worker wakes up with a sentient, hairy tail. A girl saves her neighborhood from a monster, and a woman reunites with her predatory former school teacher. Some of the key themes in these collections were of bodily autonomy and transformation, loneliness and isolation, desire versus disgust, girlhood, faith, fame, and identity. I have to say that the first story, the namesake, so it is called Beyond All Reasonable Doubt, Jesus is Alive, that was my favorite, and I gave that one a 4 stars. All of the stories were very fever dreamy, very surreal, very confusing for me. I really didn't understand or enjoy most of them, hence the average rating of 2.5 stars. But vibe check, it's giving blood red quinceañera dresses, haunted punk houses, lonely girl staring at a glowing screen at 3 a.m. Who would like this book? I think anyone who enjoys short stories that feel like fever dreams. It did have queer representation in this, specifically bisexual. Similar books, I'd say Her Body and Other Parties, perhaps. I then tried The Salvage by Anbara Salam. This is a gothic historical maritime thriller. It is about a marine archaeologist who dives into a haunted shipwreck and resurfaces into a snowbound nightmare where the past refuses to stay buried. So the main character is named Marta, and she goes down. The opening chapter was great. She goes down to this shipwreck to find the dead body of a captain. He's got a gold ring on, there's a gold coin, so there's all this sort of treasure there. And whilst she's taking photographs, she sees out the window a crouching man. So you've got creepy vibes. At the start, it reminded me of, oh my God, what was that book called? I'll put it up here if I remember it. Then we're sort of going back and forward in time. So she's married. Her character was very unlikable. She was giving, I'm a victim, and yet here's our girl cheating on her husband. Here's our girl leaving people for dead. It was very messy. And like I said, I didn't like any of the characters. There is a lot of focus on relationships in this. This is touted as a horror. It's not a horror. It's got maybe thriller elements. However, the whole, like the scary factor in this is she seeing ghosts? Pretty much. But when you look at the genre on Goodreads, there's no paranormal listed there. So I'm like, well, it's not fucking ghosts then, is it? And I hate that. It's like, don't catfish me with like, oh, it's a ghost. It's not, if it's not a ghost, it's not a paranormal book. So I wasn't enjoying it. There's one thing that pissed me off. So she goes down, and like I said, she sees all the gold everywhere. She comes back up, tells everybody, oh, you know, we found him and the ship and yay, and here's the photos. Goes back down a week later and is shocked to find all the treasure stolen. I'm like, bitch, you announced that you found this ship. You showed everybody pictures of fucking gold. It is a ship that is diveable. You don't need gear. You can free dive to it. Of course people are going to go and ransack it. And I'm just stuff like that. I'm just like, in what protocol ever do they leave the site unmanned, unprotected, if there is valuable items on the ship? I just don't think that would happen. But like I said, this was not scary. I read half of it. It was very slow. It seemed to be mostly based on her character, her relationships with other people. Like I said, very messy. Oh, her husband is also, turns out, banging one of his other employees. And it's just like, if there's not going to be actual legitimate ghosts, I'm not interested. So I did DNF that. It's a 400-page book. It wasn't my jam. The main character is bisexual, but I don't know, the female love interest that was being set up, I was like, it just felt a bit token. I don't know. I didn't love that one. So I chose to DNF it. The poetry, sorry, I've got a cat hair on my lip and it's driving me nuts. The poetry book hasn't even been viewed by my library yet, the request for it, so there's no way, even if it does get approved, it will come in time. So unfortunately I didn't get to read any of the poetry, but I would love to be sent bisexual poetry in the future, if anyone's listening. I did finish this off with Reading the Waves by Lidia Yuknavitch. This was a literary memoir that was focusing a lot on trauma and memory. And in this, the author is sort of focusing on the idea of rewriting your past. It's about like reshaping your trauma into something survivable or even beautiful, reframing it, looking at it from a different point of view, re-narrating it. It was very fragmented, but yet fluid. And she was refusing the idea that the past is fixed. And it was less about recounting trauma and more about sort of trying to reshape it. The main themes of this were memory as a living, shifting narrative, reclaiming authorship over your life, trauma and bodily memory, grief, especially motherhood and loss, and time as non-linear, so the past bleeding into the present. This was mostly focusing on her three loves that she has lost, so her daughter, her mother, and her ex-husband. She is very bisexual, so major bisexuality rep in here. There are a lot of trigger warnings. Very, very heavy subject matters are discussed. So please check them, because I find that when it comes to nonfiction, that stuff hits a lot harder than when it's in a fiction book. If I had to give it a rating, I'd say a 3.75. It was interesting, but it is heavy. She was partaking in very toxic relationship patterns. She was the victim of horrible abuse. She suffered great loss. I will say that I cannot look at beach rocks the same way ever again. A lot of the people in the comment section were saying, though, that her first memoir, The Chronology of Water, really should be read first before this. So you can tell that she mentions things that she clearly has obviously spoken a lot about in the past, but they're just, sort of alluded to here. I think mostly to do with the abuse she suffered at the hands of her father as a child. But I think also The Chronology of Water is being made into a movie as well, but everyone seems to have liked that one a bit more than this one. So yeah, I would probably give it a 3.75, but like, it's a memoir. Mood vibe. Ocean waves at dusk, blue ink bleeding into paper, hummingbirds. People who like this book. I think if you like fragmented experimental memoirs, if you like trauma narratives as well, similar in the dream house. My parents are here. Sorry, I really rushed the ending of that because I thought my dad and my stepmom were here, but they're actually not here. So I only have one more book to read for this vlog, and that is Sympathy for Wild Girls by Demry McGee. Hopefully I enjoy that more than the other books I've read thus far for the bisexual fiction section. So far, the best book that I've read out of the ones I selected from the nominees was the non-fiction, but I don't know, I've got kind of high hopes for Sympathy for Wild Girls.
Oliva,
My little black cat. Hello.
what are you doing?
Ew, Nova, your tail is wet as fuck. Ew.
She's been so...
Ew.
Oh, high anxiety
Ew,
day.
the fresh sucked tail. Ew.
She's anxious today.
Okay, welcome back for the end of this vlog. So the last book that I had yet to try was Sympathy for Wild Girls by Demry McGee. So this was a collection of surreal, speculative short stories that were exploring queer Black girlhood. There's a story where a girl joins a family of coyotes, and one where a school nurse tries to help one of the children reanimate dead animal corpses. Unfortunately, this wasn't for me. I read half of the stories in the book and then decided to call it. The best one was probably a 3.5 star. Everything else was in the 1.5 to 3 star range. So I did end up DNFing that one. So at the end of this vlog, the best book I read was Reading the Waves by Lidia Yuknavitch. Reframe, rewrite, reshape. And the next best book I read was House of Beth by Kerry. Cullen. Dead Wife Energy is underrated, which I gave a 3 stars. So wasn't the most successful reading vlog. I still want to try this again in the future. Hopefully I'll be more prepared and I can read more of the options than I was able to. But that is everything for this queer reading vlog. If there is any book on this incredibly long list of queer reads that you think is a 5 stars and I should maybe try and check out, let me know. But until next time, stay queer, Star Child.
Gay is in, gay is hot. I want some gay, gay it's gonna be.